The very first thing that we have to cover is self-awareness. It is going to be a consistent theme throughout this because it's really hard to be self-aware. It's actually quite hard to be self-aware. There's some research done by a woman named Tasha Urich, and she's found that she's created some measures, and she's found that while like 80% of people believe they're self-aware, only like 15% actually are. But what does it really mean to be self-aware? So we can think of our mind as this iceberg. And it kind of divided into three parts here. We have our conscious mind. Those are the things that we are aware of. We know we're doing it. You know when you're making a decision. Behaviors, you can at least see it. You know that you're doing it. It might be automatic, but you're still doing it. Goals, you've got to be conscious thought there. Willpower, that requires conscious thought. Oh, sorry, I just seen Nikki. Yes, exactly. Yes to the kids. Okay, good. Then we have the conscious mind we're aware of. Subconscious mind, that's like right through the waterline. It's like murky, it's a little dark. We're somewhat aware of these things. We're going to be aware of our thoughts and emotions at times, but a lot of times we're not. Those are really running in the background all the time. And then the unconscious, those are the things that are like deep in there that are hard to get to. And that's largely where sports psychology, or at least how I do sports psychology, and general therapy and a psychologist, they probably would be more interested in that deeper stuff. Whereas we're going to stay kind of in this range. We're going to stay a little bit more shallow. And one of the first goals is to raise up some of those things above the waterline, because we want to know what we're doing. You can't fix anything unless you know what's wrong with it first. And not to say that anything's wrong with your thoughts or emotions or anything like that, but it's about how can we improve it. And so generally speaking, with sports psychology, it's all about how do we improve. Psychology historically has been about there's something wrong with you, let's fix that. Our approach, or my approach in sports psychology, is we can always improve, and there's things that we can do to improve in our mind. So thoughts, emotions, and performance. That's what we're talking about today. So in your workbook, exercise I want to start with to help raise our awareness of some things. And so I want you to think about a time when you performed unbelievable. It was one of your peak performances, things were going great, crushing it. So that would be the green. All right, and so we're going to identify for each color what you were feeling in your body, what specific thoughts you were having, what you were feeling emotionally, and where your focus was. So if green is you are crushing it, just everything's going well, it's flowing well, like absolutely crushing it. Performance is great. Red would be you're feeling completely out of control, it's terrible, like not good at all. And then yellow would be kind of somewhere in between, like it's not going great, but it's salvageable. It's not terrible. So I want you to write into those circles or next to it, if you can identify what you typically feel in your body, what you feel emotionally, and any thoughts that you might have for each of those situations. And then lastly, if you can, where your focus is. And that might be a little bit of a trickier question, and that's okay if you don't have a full answer to that right now. So just spend a couple minutes going through that. Exercise to raise our awareness, and then when you're in your performance, checking in with yourself by saying the green, yellow, and red. Then, in subsequent sessions, you're going to learn some tools that you can then use to raise yourself up from yellow to green, red to yellow, and so forth. Of just quickly kind of judging, okay, where am I at? How are things going right now? Let's do something about it. And if you're in the green, you don't even need to check in, you're just flowing, things are good. All right, so let's continue. So one of the main, so when we talk about thoughts and emotions, we want to understand how they impact performance, right? So we have thoughts, and this is based on a cognitive behavioral therapy model. Essentially, it says thoughts impact our emotions, and our emotions impact our actions. So I have the thought that, oh my gosh, I'm not going to perform well. Emotions are going to be fear and nervousness and lack of confidence. The actions might be that you are more hesitant, or you are not as assertive, or whatever it might be. So then with that, because then your actions typically are probably suffering because your thoughts are not where they need to be, your actions are then reinforcing the thoughts. It's like saying, okay, yeah, those thoughts are true. So this can be a dangerous little loop that we can find ourselves in, where it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? It's like we have the thought of, man, I suck at this. Then you suck at it. And that just tells you, okay, yeah, that's right, you do. So what underlies this is our beliefs. So our beliefs are going to have a big impact on the thoughts that we have. And so to understand that mechanism, we also kind of want to dig a little bit deeper into what are some of the beliefs that you hold about yourself, and then really kind of critically examining those to see if they're serving you or they're not. Yeah. Now, what I'd like to say is that, and this might go against what I was just saying, but thoughts are not facts. So what do I mean by that? There exists, our mind is unbelievable. It is, I think there are more connections in the human mind than there are grains of sand in the world. Like, it's insane what the mind can do. However, in order to operate as quickly as it does, it has to create a lot of shortcuts. That's where stereotypes come from, for instance. And so these shortcuts can be named cognitive biases, or I just call them errors in our thinking. And so every one of these every line there that you see is a different cognitive bias or a different error in the way that we think. It's just essentially, think of it like a processing error in our mind. That's why I say thoughts are not facts, because our mind's job is not to give you the reality of things. Your mind's job is to protect you. And so it will tell you to be scared of things that you don't need to be scared of. It'll tell you not to do things because its job is to protect you. And so if we go back to this, the way that we dismantle this whole thing, this whole process, is by recognizing our thoughts are not facts. Just because we're thinking something doesn't mean that it's true. When we do that, we just obliterate this whole process. Now, that requires first and foremost self-awareness. We got to know what we're thinking when we're thinking it. And that's where that part of that stoplight comes into play. You'll also see in your workbook, there is a thought log and an emotion wheel. So for homework, and I'll come back to this, but I want you in between sessions to, after a certain performance, or maybe just at the end of the day, come and write in specific thoughts you can remember having that day, good or bad, doesn't matter. And then try to identify the corresponding emotion with that thought. Don't worry too much about the actions. Really just want you to start raising your awareness of what those thoughts and corresponding emotions are. Does that make sense?
Yep.
All right. So one in particular, one specific error in our thinking or cognitive bias that is pervasive and it is powerful is right there. It's called the negativity bias. Catherine, I'm sure you're familiar with it. I think we've probably even talked about it before. But what is the negativity bias? Well, it's our universal tendency for negative events and emotions to affect us more strongly than positive ones. So essentially that we're going around all day and we are noticing the things that are going on around us, the negative things that are going on around us more than the positive things. and the negative things are going to carry more weight. So research shows that a setback at work, so this is a negative event, can have between 2 and 5 times as much emotional impact as a positive event. So that's why you might have a great day, did a bunch of great things, but you had a conversation with a coworker or a friend and you said something you shouldn't have, and that just like burns in your mind, and it's just like that all you can remember, and maybe you even struggle sleeping at night. And if you think about it, there's a reason for this. Our mind was programmed to find the negative because often it was more important for us to remember where the negative things were than the positive. You wanted to remember where the poisonous berries were. You wanted to remember not to walk into the neighboring tribe or whatever it is. Those were things that would ensure your survival, where remembering where the good tasting berries were not necessarily going to ensure your survival. Mm-hmm. So a general rule of thumb is that researchers have come up with is that in order to counteract some of this negativity bias, we want to search for a 4-to-1 ratio of positive events to negative events. And this only really works when the events are comparable in magnitude. So if you, let's say, bomb a test, just do terrible, you would have to find a corresponding positive event of kind of equal weight. So eating a cupcake probably isn't going to be, of equal weight. So keep an eye out for this. And this is where, thoughts are not facts. This is going to be a big deal because your negativity bias is always around you. And so start really focusing on, and we're going to talk about this in a second, hunting the positive. So in order to do all of this, right, and be self-aware, know what's going on in our mind, we need to create a pause. We need to be able to slow things down. So famous psychiatrist, Dr. Viktor Frankl, he wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning, and he was a psychiatrist, an Austrian neurologist during World War II, was Jewish and was put into different concentration camps. Horrible, horrible things that he had to endure. But he talked about being able to respond to situations instead of react. And so he famously quoted, "Between stimulus and response is a space. In that space is the power to choose." So that's the space that we want to start creating a bigger gap of. We want to create that space between something just happened and my reaction. I want to create a little bit more time to check in up here and make sure that we respond with purpose versus react. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So yeah, up till now, we've talked about raising self-awareness. We've talked about how our mind kind of plays tricks on us, and one of the more pervasive ones, which is negativity bias. And that if we can remember that our thoughts are not necessarily true, that we can kind of cut out that chain of events where our thoughts impact our emotions and our actions. What I'd like you to do right now is pause, and I want you to think about some beliefs that you have about yourself that are maybe holding you back. Beliefs that are not serving you well. And just write those down somewhere in your workbook that you have space. So a way that we can now change some of these processes in our mind and start developing a mind that is going to help us rather than hurt us. And so there's an overarching I guess, theory called growth mindset. This is fairly well known now. I think they're teaching it in schools, and I lost you. And it essentially looks at our beliefs and what we believe to be true about ourselves, specifically regarding our skills and abilities, our intelligence. So Dr. Dweck's research, and she's done a lot of it, has found that we can have two different mindsets when it comes to what we believe to be true about our own abilities. So we can have a fixed mindset that says essentially your ability is limited. You were born with a certain level of ability, and that's kind of all you're going to get to. I mean, you max out at that level. Versus a growth mindset, and that means, yes, we're all born with different levels of talent or abilities, but I can develop, I can get better. There are ways that I can get better. So you can imagine that if you have a fixed mindset, there's going to be some ramifications. So let's look at how a fixed mindset and growth mindset would look at new challenges, effort, performance feedback, setbacks, and failures. All of these things are things you're going to have to deal with one way or the other in a performance. So if we have a fixed mindset, we're going to look at challenges not favorably. We're going to try to avoid them. We're going to give up. We're going to give up easily, because that is now, if you are born with a certain level of ability and you don't think that can change, it's more challenges, and not succeeding is more a reflection now on you than it is just on your abilities. Because now you have really identified yourself with that level of ability, so it can feel more personal. So that's why we're going to avoid challenges, because I don't want to fail, because that's a reflection on me. Versus a growth mindset, we know that our abilities are going to be able to fluctuate, and that challenges are how we improve. And so by taking on challenges and persevering, we can improve. So through effort, again, we're not going to see it worthwhile because I'm naturally good at this or I'm naturally bad at this. Effort isn't really going to do anything. And if you're good at something, so you can be good at something and have a fixed mindset. If you're good at something, you are then trying to prove to others that you're good at it, because you want other people to see that you're good at it. And effort, giving forth a lot of effort, kind of shows that you got to work really hard, and that is not conducive to people thinking that you're just a natural talent. So often you'll see that people kind of will like purposely not give effort when they think they're good at something, to kind of show other people that, hey, I'm really good, I don't even have to put in effort. And so versus a growth mindset, we know that effort is required to improve. So we know that, so we have no problem putting forth effort. Performance feedback, so we'll get defensive and take it personally. Again, because when we have a fixed mindset and we believe that our abilities are static, we're going to take, it's more of a reflection on who we are than what we can do. So performance feedback with a growth mindset, we're going to love it. We're going to soak it up. We're going to try to find it. We're going to seek it out, and we're going to apply it for next time. And then setbacks and failures, again, to protect our ego. If you have a fixed mindset, you're going to blame others. You're going to lose confidence as well, but you're going to try to find ways to not take ownership of it. Whereas growth mindset, you're going to take accountability and going to look at it just more objectively. Like, how can I learn from this and improve? You're also going to be able to maintain confidence a little bit better. Any questions about that, Catherine?
No.
Okay. So having a fixed mindset leads to restricted view on controllables, which we're going to talk about in a subsequent session, driven by external motivation, so rewards, winning, losing, that kind of thing. and just general lowered well-being and satisfaction on performance. Whereas a growth mindset is going to help you have greater sense of control, higher just internal motivation, and greater well-being and satisfaction on performance. So I had you all just write down some limiting beliefs that you have. And I want you to now think about, where do you have a fixed mindset and where do you have a growth mindset? So your limiting beliefs are likely going to be tied in with fixed mindset. They might be similar. So as an example, I grew up my entire life telling myself I'm not a math guy. Like, just not good at math, can't do it, whatever. And so I never put forth any effort towards it. I was always getting critical feedback and I didn't want to hear it. I would ignore it. It was just like classic fixed mindset. And I still do have a fixed mindset really about math. That's been a hard thing to change. But also, what is the value in me trying to change it right now? I mean, I'm not going to be a mathematician. So maybe at times it's not all that important to be have a growth mindset if you're self-aware. So think about where you have a fixed mindset and where you have a growth mindset, and think about what that means for your thoughts. What kind of thoughts show up? Usually with a fixed mindset, it's going to say something like, I can't do that. A great way to change a fixed-minded thought like that to a growth-minded is add the word yet. I can't do that yet. That instantly can switch your mind around to having a growth mindset. Okay, so that is one. The reason I like growth mindset is because it gets at your beliefs, your belief system, which is a little bit deeper, but also your thoughts. And so really want you to start instilling that growth mindset of, it's really all about improvement. It's all really you can strive to do. If you're trying to be elite in anything, you can't just be elite. You got to have a road to get there. And so if you can embrace that growth and just understand that it's all about growth, I'm going to fail. There's going to be a lot of failures out there. The more you can accept that, the quicker you're going to be climbing that ladder. But it's scary, right? It's scary to fail. It's scary to feel like we're going to be judged. And so to counteract, again, some of that negativity bias, we have this idea of just hunting the good stuff. So just looking out, finding the positives around you. Now, I'm not one for like flowery kind of Instagram, like be your best, or like you've got it, Catherine, what's the word I'm looking for? Where you tell yourself something like
positive affirmations.
Yeah, positive affirmations. Thank you. I'm not big on affirmations because I think a lot of them are kind of generic and don't really carry much weight with you, and maybe you don't believe them. So what I recommend is, finding an emotion that you want to feel more. So by hunting the good stuff, a lot of research on this, by noticing the positives, it's going to promote more creative thought and more kind of open up your mind. It's this idea of, it's called broaden and build theory, because it broadens and builds kind of the space in your mind. And so some research has found 10 key positive emotions. And so you'll see them here: joy, gratitude, serenity, interest, hope, pride, amusement, inspiration, awe, love. So I want you to look at those right now and jot down 2 to 3 that you would like to experience more. 2 to 3 that maybe are important to you that you're not experiencing as much as you'd like.
Excitement isn't on there.
You're right. You're right. So this research found that these were the 10 most frequently felt positive emotions. And so it is in order, except love was number one by a big amount. But then after that, it was joy, gratitude, serenity, interest, hope, etc. All right, so now that you've identified some of the emotions that you want to feel, so you'll pick 1 to 3 emotions you want to focus on this week, and then write down how you're going to feel that. Like, what do you need to do in order to experience more joy? Does that mean you go on a walk outside? Does it mean you call a friend? What does that mean? Or is it just simply you want to have the intention of finding the joy in everything? So maybe it doesn't mean actually doing anything. It just means looking at things differently. So in this, we're trying to almost overwrite some of the thinking patterns that come along with that negativity bias. So ultimately, if we're experiencing more positive emotions, we're going to be more confident. I mean, if you're enjoying yourself and you're free and you're feeling grateful or inspired, you're also going to feel most likely more confident. If you're going around all day just noticing the negative things, it's going to be pretty hard to be confident. All right, so let's start to wrap this up. So some week 1 takeaways. Beliefs impact our thoughts, thoughts impact emotions, emotions actions, and then the actions reinforce the thoughts or the beliefs. So that goes back to that slide, and you'll have it in your workbook, that diagram of thoughts, emotions, actions. Those actions go back to our thoughts. They can reinforce them. The way that we break that pattern, though, is by recognizing that thoughts are not facts. We don't have to believe the things that we are saying to ourselves. So just because you have a thought doesn't mean it's true. So start really challenging your thoughts and use the thought log. So in your workbook, there'll be, again, a page that says thought log. So use that after every day. Write down the thoughts that you remember having and the corresponding emotion. This is going to help us identify if there's any patterns. And then embrace a growth mindset. So recognize when you're telling yourself you can't do things, or anytime that you feel like you're trying to prove yourself to others, probably coming from a fixed mindset place. And just remind yourself whenever you're feeling fear to do something, that it's not about perfection, it's about improvement. So what I like to say is strive to improve, not to prove. Not trying to prove anything to anybody. We're just trying to improve. So improve, not prove. And then lastly, hunt the positive. I mean, find the positive around you. Be intentional about some emotions that you want to feel, and see how you can bring that into your performance as well. By doing that, you're going to help your levels of confidence and resilience and all sorts of things. So that's week 1, thoughts and emotions. I will be posting this recording soon somewhere and be giving it to you. And so for homework, I want you all to fill out your stoplight. Fill out the stoplight in the workbook, fill out the thought log, and just, again, we're just trying to raise awareness of our thoughts and emotions, and try to embrace a growth mindset whenever you can through your thoughts, as well as hunt the positive. All right. Thank you all. Good stuff today, and look forward to next week when we are talking about mindfulness. All right. All right. Sorry that I kind of,